I'm going to share with you an American story. It's our story about being born in this country, being an American, and about a disastrous turn we as a nation took at a critical moment in our collective history. I'm going to delve into one of the darkest episodes in our country's past and describe how this same event eventually came to be one of the brightest, most shining moments in our American story. I'll share personally about life during those dark times and put it in the context of the experiences of a whole people interned because we happen to look like the enemy. We will see how the internment came about, examine its roots, and consider how our government took the drastic measure of removing all persons of Japanese ancestry from the West Coast, based on a fabrication. For some of you, parts of the story will be familiar. For others, I hope much of it will become familiar. I will end with considering the implications for us today and visit the question, could it happen again? I begin by introducing you to the primary players in this drama. My mother, Yoriko Ann Nagai, was born in 1911 near San Jose, California. Her parents had immigrated to the San Francisco Bay Area from Tokyo, Japan, several years before. My dad, Ben Noriaki Nagai, was born in 1904 in Hiroshima, Japan. He came to the Bay Area in 1917, following his family by several years. He attended school just long enough to learn English, and then left to work to support his family. My parents were wed in an arranged marriage in 1931 and settled on a farm just outside of Atwater, California, a small farming community in the San Joaquin Valley, an hour north of Fresno. My sister was born in May of 1932. I was born in January of 38, and I want you to check out the years on this young guy. My younger brother was born in December of 39. Following Japan's attack on Pearl Harbor, we were moved off of our farm in May of 42 to the Merced County Fairgrounds, where we were temporarily housed in livestock pens. Our 3-month stay there was in the middle of the California summer, where temperatures often reached triple digits. So I want you to think horse stalls and 100-degree heat. In August of 42, we traveled by train to Granada, Colorado, where the War Relocation Authority had established Camp Amache in the southeastern corner of the state. My mother was born in California, so to be jailed behind barbed wire as an American citizen was very painful. Anti-Japanese laws prohibited my dad from becoming a naturalized citizen, and for him, being imprisoned was just as painful. Both my parents felt deep embarrassment and shame over being imprisoned, a very typical Japanese response. With a sense of betrayal by their government, disappointment and hurt over the loyalty being questioned, and disillusioned at the loss of their freedoms. Now, in spite of this, neither of them passed along negative feelings or attitudes to us kids about their treatment by their parent country. This was significant in the formation of my character. My family in camp included mom and dad, my sister, that's me in my Navy uniform, and my younger brother. My youngest brother was born in camp, and mom and dad referred to him as the GI baby, government issue. Now that's a bit of gallows humor from camp. My sister was 10 at the time, and her camp experience was more traumatic than mine. Being older, she understood about the war and what was happening to our family, what it meant to be behind barbed wire. Like our parents, she felt embarrassment and shame for Pearl Harbor, and saddened to have to leave all of her school friends. To this day, she still harbors bitter feelings about camp. I was between the ages of 4 and 6 during this time, and for most younger children, it was an exciting, though innocent time, like being at an extended day camp. I started school in camp, so this was a very important time for me. We had a black metal stove in our apartment, and I sometimes went to the coal bin at the end of the mess hall building to get coal for heating. Mom did the laundry by hand in deep double cement wash tubs using a glass-ribbed washboard and bars of ivory soap. She washed in one tub, rinsed in the second, and then hung the clothes on lines strung across the apartment during the winter and out back in warmer weather. There was a farmer's market where you could buy fresh fruits and vegetables that were grown by internees on farmland just outside the fences. As a child growing up, there are always parental admonitions, and in camp there was one that I did take to heart without question. Don't go near the fence. Being well trained, through guilt and shame, I never did. When Barbara and I first moved to Eugene in mid-2007, we did so to be close to our 4 grandchildren. In 2009, I gave a simplified version of this talk to a class of 5th graders here in Eugene, something I had done for 4th grade students in Berkeley, California for the previous 18 years. My daughter and son videotaped my talk that day, and it was an education for them as well. My daughter was surprised that my family of 5 lived in a single room 20 feet by 24, and we hung ropes and sheets as dividers to give some sense of privacy. This is my Aunt Kimmy and my cousins during one Christmas, and that's my Uncle George in the photo. Each Sunday she read the funnies to the kids in our 2 families while we sat at her feet, and we heard about the war in Europe, where my uncle was with the 442nd Regimental Combat Team in Italy. To us, he was a hero, and years later I was amazed when he showed me a piece of shrapnel nearly an inch across removed from his back. I remember the Blue Star flag in the window of my aunt's apartment. My dad was considered an enemy alien, so he wasn't eligible to serve in the armed forces of the United States. But because many restrictions surrounding the internment were relaxed almost as soon as the camp opened, he was granted a pass to leave camp and served what to him was his patriotic duty on a farm in Nebraska, filling the void left there by the local men away in the armed forces. In December of 1944, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled in a landmark decision that the evacuation and internment were not unconstitutional, a ruling that wasn't corrected until November 10th of 1983. More on this in a moment. Camp Omachi was formally closed not quite a year later on October 15th of 1945, and my family returned to Atwater by train soon after. We were welcomed at the station by the Bank of America president and 2 neighbors. As our train pulled into the station, Mom and Dad shielded us from signs with messages like this. Peer pressure and wanting acceptance are very powerful forces, especially amongst any minority population where acceptance by the majority means making it. When my mother and dad moved to Atwater in the mid-1930s, they were welcomed by the Methodist minister, who told them they would have to give up their Buddhist religion and become Christians, or they wouldn't be accepted by the people. So they became good Methodists. Mom served on committees and commissions in the church. She served as the PTA president for many years, and both were active in agricultural associations. Mom was a Cub Scout den mother. During the period just after the war, at the request of the commander of the nearby Strategic Air Command base, she counseled airmen who had returned from the war with Japanese war brides, helping them to make adjustments in a culture where mixed marriages weren't all that common or accepted, especially with a Japanese spouse. Though nothing was ever said directly in our upbringing, virtually everything we did was to ensure our acceptance as regular Americans. For me, my identity was shaped in many ways by this. For a period from early grade school until I was in high school, I refused to use my middle name, Hideaki, because it sounded too Japanesey, all the while overlooking my continued use of my family name of Nagai. The fact that my youngest brother, born in camp, was given an American middle name Charles, wasn't just a coincidence. The rest of us had Japanese middle names, but we were born before Pearl Harbor. In our living room, we had an American and California state flag. A large wood carving by my grandfather hung on the wall of an American eagle with an American flag in one talon and a clutch of arrows in the other, its wings outspread, with the Capitol dome in the background. There were crocheted doilies on the backrests of sofas and overstuffed chairs with such words as, "In God We Trust" and "God Bless America." And our family Bible, with a tooled leather cover decorated with an American flag, rested on the coffee table. Walking into our home, you would have thought it a typical American home in post-war America. I always thought of it as a 200% American home.